Hey guys, Mouse back to you with another video. Today what I'm going to teach is some pistol shooting techniques. What we're going to go over, I'm here at Tactical Guns and Ammo in Calhoun. So what we're going to go over today is just some of the basics of pistol shooting. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is open carry versus concealed carry. Open carry, if you're going to open carry, some of the advantages to this is it's quicker to get to your firearm. However, you're also displaying that you have a firearm. So that could be considered a good thing, and only that you're showing your rights. You're exercising your rights and letting other people know it's not illegal for you to open carry as long as you've followed all the laws. So, that being said, next we're going to talk about holsters. So what I'm shooting today is the Glock 23. Right now I have it configured in 9mm. With a 23 you can change it, change the barrels, and shoot different calibers. I'm going to switch to 40 and show you guys mag reloads because I only have one mag of 9mm. So with a holster, if you're open carrying, I would suggest get a tension holster, which means someone can't just grab it and pull the gun out. You actually have to get a proper grip on it, press the button on the side to be able to release the weapon. It takes a little bit of getting practice too, but it's a safe way, it's a safer way of carrying your firearm. When you grab the firearm, you're wanting to get the web of your hand on the back strap of the firearm as high up as you can. This creates a stable shooting platform. Your finger, what I like about these holsters is your finger actually rests when you press that button. Your finger is not on the trigger, which is very good. You should not have your finger on the trigger out because a lot of people tend to shoot themselves, especially if you're in a stress situation. You don't want to go ahead and develop that habit of putting your finger on the trigger. You're going to try to be going ahead and getting on the trigger. You're going to end up hurting yourself more than you are anybody else. Also, when drawing, keep your left hand, if I'm a right-handed shooter, keep your non-dominant hand away from the firearm. Don't be grabbing like this because once again, you'll get on the trigger, you'll shoot yourself. Keep your hand away from it. When you draw, you're going to get high on the back strap. Get a good grip on the pistol. You're going to release the pistol from the holster, and when you come up, this hand could be used to push off the perpetrator if you're in a stress situation. When it comes out, you're going to turn your thumb towards the target, you're going to meet the firearm, and you come out like this. Okay, and that's how you're going to get your stance. I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm sorry for the lighting. They've got good lighting in here, so it's going to drown out the camera a little bit. So when I release the firearm, my hand will then come up and meet with the firearm and come out to my shooting stance. Okay, if you are open carry, preferably if you can, tuck your shirt in. If you're concealed and you have a longer shirt on, it's important that you get the shirt out of the way of the firearm. So you're going to pull that shirt up as much as you can to get it out of the way to be able to grab the firearm so that you don't accidentally grab shirt with the firearm and drop the firearm as you come up to your stance. That would be very bad. Also, you have to do this where it gets in the way of your holster and you end up accidentally pulling the trigger. Something like a Glock that doesn't have a safety, be very careful when holstering the weapon. Make sure your finger is off the trigger. You'll end up shooting yourself. Also, if it's something like a leather holster or something like that that can get kind of supple, that holster is not touching that trigger. You'll end up shooting yourself. Okay, so just keep safety in mind at all times. Be sure you know where the muzzle is pointed and make sure that that trigger guard is clear when holstering and unholstering. Okay, so when releasing the firearm, and I'm going to do some shooting in a moment. I'm going to make this a series videos. I'll upload them in a series. When you're unholstering the firearm, high on the back strap, release the firearm, other hand comes up to meet the firearm. You're already at the high ready. You could go ahead and get on the trigger now if you needed to. You're going to push the firearm out and get into your shooting stance, and this is how you're going to fire. Level with the dominant eye. You don't have to do the tactical turtle thing where you do this. Just bring the firearm up, get with your dominant eye. For me, it's my right eye. I'm going to push out, and I'm already getting that front sight in focus. I'm focusing on the front sight. I'm going to get front sight in focus as I push the firearm out, so that by the time I get into my stance and fully into the stance, I could go ahead and be getting accurately on the trigger. Okay, so next what we're going to talk about is some do's and don'ts. Okay, when you're firing your actual firearm, one of the things you don't want to do is be leaning back. I see a lot of people that do this thing where they lean back. You don't want to do that. This is a fight, so you need to have a fighting stance. You don't want to be able to lose your balance while moving around, moving to cover. Go ahead and get in the habit of actually getting into your fighting stance. Okay, feet should be shoulder width apart. You don't want to do what's called T-cupping, which is where people put their hand on the bottom of the firearm. This doesn't help at all and allows it to recoil. This hand should be about 80% of your grip strength. So this hand is doing all the grip, your non-dominant hand. That leaves this hand able to work the mag release and the trigger with finesse. You want to pull the trigger with the middle of the pad of your finger. You don't want to pull it with the tip, and you don't want to have your finger all the way in the trigger guard. Okay. So when you pull the weapon up, your non-dominant hand, which is going to be most of your grip strength, is going to come up to the firearm. The third joint is going to be under your trigger guard, and your other thumb is going to be pointed toward the target down the frame. Okay, I'm going to move the camera in a second so you can get a different angle. As you're pushing out, this arm isn't quite locked out, but almost. The wrist is stiff, because a stiff wrist allows it to not recoil as much. Okay, so I'm going to fire some rounds so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see the firearm. Okay, I'm going to fire a few rounds to show you what I'm talking about. See if that's good enough. Okay. I had a little bit of a stovepipe jam. All right, talk about that in a minute. I'm going to show you the target. Those were all in the center ring. I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay, now I've moved the camera to the other side of my body so you can see what my non-dominant hand is doing. Okay, my non-dominant hand should stay away from the firearm when I'm drawing. You don't want to grab the holster, because that has a tendency, if you're in a stressful situation, you'll try to get on the trigger, you could shoot yourself in the hand. There's videos and pictures of cops that in a stressful situation had to draw, had to defend themselves, and they end up shooting themselves in the hand, which doesn't help you at all in a firefight. Okay, so the non-dominant hand is to help you, not only keeping it here does that keep you from hurting yourself, but it allows you to be able to defend yourself, push them away, get some distance in between them so you can draw and fire. And it also keeps you from, like I said, being able to hurt yourself, but you can be able to push someone off and be able to defend yourself. The non-dominant hand, you're going to point the thumb toward the target. This is 80% of your grip strength, so this is what actually holds the weapon, and that wrist should be locked like so. Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see when I shoot what that's going to look like. Okay, I'm going to draw the weapon. I'm going to do this slow. I'm going to draw the weapon. I'm going to point toward the target. I'm going to come up to my to my dominant eye, and I'm going to focus on that front sight, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm not focusing on the target. I'm focusing on the front sight. Okay, and I just level off the sights, and that's when I'm going to squeeze the trigger. Okay, you don't have to do the tactical turtle like you see people do. That's just one more step that you don't have to do. Just bring it up to your eye and push out, and you should go ahead and be able to be on the trigger on your way out if you had to. Okay, so once again, we'll do it slowly. Okay, if I had to, I could push out. Thumb's going to be toward the target. Both thumbs are along the frame of the slide. It should look like this once you get along the slide. Okay, so I'm going to push out. My eye should already be on the front sight, and I could go ahead and squeeze the trigger. Okay, and to show you how accurate, center ring. Okay, if you have a proper stance and you're doing everything right with this left hand, this should be most of your grip strength, and you can still operate your right hand to pull the trigger and release the magazine. Okay, again, one more thing with the non-dominant hand. The non-dominant hand, if you are concealed carry, if you're concealing it, you're trying to keep it hidden, okay, when you go to draw, you're going to make sure that that shirt is out of the way. Okay, that's very important that you don't grab the shirt as you draw, because you could end up dropping the firearm. Okay, it'll mess your whole stance off. Okay, so make sure that when you go to draw concealed, you get the shirt out of the way, pull it up, be able to draw. Same thing. Try to keep your hand out of the way of the firearm. Slide down the frame, pushing out. Okay, so we're at the shooting range today at Tactical Guns and Ammo here in Calhoun. Some things when shooting. One thing you don't want to develop is a flinch. Okay, when you pull that trigger, it should be a nice, steady pull. You're not trying to jerk that trigger. Okay, that's totally throws off your accuracy. It needs to be a nice, steady pull to the rear. You scared me. Straight back, okay? If you use the crook of your finger, I'm going to pretend my finger finger straight here. If I use the crook of my finger when I pull back, it pulls my finger forward this way, which is going to make the barrel of the firearm do this. If I pull with the tip of my finger, it does the opposite and pulls it the other way, which does the same thing. But if I use the pad of my finger and just pull straight back, it's just going to pull the firearm straight back, sending the round straight. Okay? You don't want to develop a flinch, and one of the ways you can prevent that is by not doing what I'm doing now and constantly just shoot actual live ammo. You want to do lots of dry firing. The military emphasizes this a lot. Dry firing, you can do at home safely, just empty the weapon out. They actually make things called snap caps or something similar. You don't necessarily have to have those, but they do help. People are worried about mushrooming out their firing pin, modern firing pins. Unless you're just doing this all the time, you shouldn't have to worry about that, okay? With dry firing, you're going to practice the same things. You're just going to go slow and you're going to build good habits. Okay, and dry firing makes it to where I don't, if you wonder if you have a flinch, load a snap cap, or if you ever have a stovepipe or something, when the firearm's supposed to fire, you'll do this. You'll jump, okay? And I do that sometimes, and I have to go dry fire and get that out. That's very important that you dry fire to produce those good habits, so that when you're actually firing, you're not just wasting ammo. One thing you don't want to do is get frustrated and just start sending rounds down range. Ammo's expensive, so don't waste your ammo. Use the ammo to actually train. Don't ever just come to a shooting range and just be shooting ammo. You see people all the time just come to the range and pull the trigger as fast as they can. They're not actually trying to train anything. They're not training sight alignment, or they're not training, trying to get those good accurate groups. If you get to the point that you're shooting fast, it should be because you have practiced a lot, and that's how fast you can shoot accurately. If you're not actually shooting accurate, you need to slow it down and take your time with each shot. Make sure you're learning good habits and getting that sight alignment. Okay, another thing you don't want to do when drawing the firearm is you don't want to do this. You don't want to bring the firearm up like so. Okay, sweeping the firearm is a bad habit. It causes you time to be able to get focus on that front sight and have to focus. Okay, so don't swing the weapon up. Bring the weapon up, turn, and push out. It's a lot faster that way to be able to get your sight alignment. Okay, we're going to do some actual shooting. Another thing is when you go to the shooting range, don't go too far out with a pistol. 99% of shootings happen within 7 yards, and most of those happen within 3 yards. So don't take it out to 50 yards and be trying to get real nice tight groups. Odds are you're not going to use it at that range. That's probably murder. That was a bad one. Okay, now I'm doing these quick. If you're new at this should go about like this. You should be able to get that sight alignment before you pull the trigger. Okay, the weapon I'm shooting to is a Glock 23. Weapon is clear. Magazine is out. I put it in my pocket. We're going to change this over to a 40 so I can show you reloads. So if you're new to Glock, the way to break one of these down is just give it a slight tug backwards on the slide. It's got two little pins that you pull down. Release those, pull the trigger, frame comes right off. Okay, take the spring off, take the barrel out. I'm going to change this barrel out to the 9mm barrel, or I'm sorry, the 40mm barrel. It was a 9mm barrel. We're changing it. Put the weapon back together, line up the slide, weapons back together. Make sure I'm putting in the right magazine, that would be bad. Okay, so now we're going to talk about reloads. With reloads, when you fire your last round, as you fire, and this is a full mag, so I'm going to fire one round, I'm going to drop, I'm still going to have one in, but I'm going to show you. Okay, this is a 40 caliber. With reloads, as you fire your last round, didn't fire. You guys probably saw that little bit of a flinch there. Got to do more dry firing, we talked about that. as you fire your last round, the frame will lock back if it's empty. In this case, it's not locked back because it's not empty, so I can reload and still be ready to go. Okay, with reloading, I'm going to take my finger off of the trigger. I'm going to release with this hand. I'm going to flip the weapon around sideways in my hand like so that my thumb can get to the mag release. I'm going to drop the mag. Normally, if I was in a firefight, I'd just let that fall. Okay, drop the mag. If I have open carry mags, I'm going to pull one out, and the way that I do mine is I have them angled toward the bullet facing outward, so that when I pull it out, my finger is on the end. Okay, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm still keeping my eyes on the target at this point. So I drop the mag, I'm going to pull this one out, and that allows me to be able to basically point where I want the weapon, where I want the magazine to go. Okay, at the moment of truth, when I'm about to load, I'm going to take my eyes off of the target for just that split second, because the weapon's still going to be up toward my face. I'm going to just make sure that I've got a good visual that the magazine is going in. I'm going to slam it home. If this was locked to the rear, I would release the slide to go back forward, and I'm back on the target, able to shoot. Okay, I'm going to do this with an empty magazine so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I've got one round left. I've got one in the weapon, so I'm going to fire 2 rounds, and I'm going to do a reload. I'll do it slow so you see what I'm doing. Locks to the rear. When it locks to the rear, I'm going to turn the weapon in my hand. Eyes are still on the target. I'm going to release that magazine, just let it fall. Next magazine comes up, I look, my eyes go to the magazine at the last moment, I lock it in. On the side, a round is now chambered. Alright, I'm going to show you guys that one more time from this side. It's going to be full loaded. It's not going to lock back to the rear because I still have rounds in it. So I'm going to draw. It's not locked back to the rear because it still has rounds in it. I'm going to drop that magazine. Other magazine comes up. My eyes are still on the target. I look at the last moment, make sure it's seated. I slam it in hard when I load. So when I actually do this, it's drop like so. It happens fast. Aim back down. Fire another round.